The snow fell thick and heavy on the night they found the baby. Old Thomas, the baker, was the first to hear it. He had stepped outside to check his ovens one last time before bed when the sound reached his ears. It was not a normal baby's cry. It made his bones ache deep inside like the feeling before a terrible storm. "Wife," he called back into the house. "There's something outside." His wife, Margaret, wrapped her shawl tight around her shoulders and joined him at the door. The crying grew louder. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "The temple," Margaret whispered. "It's coming from the temple steps." They walked through the snow together, their feet crunching on the frozen ground. Other villagers emerged from their homes drawn by the strange sound. Lanterns bobbed in the darkness as more people joined the group moving toward the old stone temple at the village center. There, on the cold temple steps, wrapped in a thin blanket that was already dusted white with snow, lay a baby. The infant's face was red from crying, its small fists waving in the frigid air. But the strangest thing was not the baby itself. The strangest thing was what happened around it. The stones of the temple steps were cracking. Small splits appeared in the ancient rock, spreading like spider webs. The air above the baby shimmered, the way it does above a hot road in summer, even though the night was freezing cold. "Don't touch it," said Elder Greta, pushing through the crowd. She was the oldest person in Thornhaven Village, and everyone listened when she spoke. Her face looked even more wrinkled than usual in the lantern light, pulled tight with fear. "That is no ordinary child, but it will freeze," said Mara. She was young, only 25 winters old, and she had lost her own baby to fever just 2 months before. Her arms still ached with emptiness. "We cannot leave a baby out here to die." "Look at the stones, girl," Greta snapped. She pointed with a gnarled finger at the cracking temple steps. "Look at the air itself. This child brings bad luck. It is cursed." The baby's crying grew louder. In the distance, wolves began to howl. But these were not normal wolf sounds. The howls rose and fell in patterns, almost like they were speaking words in some ancient language. The villagers moved closer together, afraid. "My cows won't give milk," said Farmer Jens. "Started this afternoon, all of them at once. Now I know why." "My chickens won't lay," added his wife. "They're all huddled in the corner of the coop, too scared to move." More villagers spoke up, sharing strange things that had happened since sunset. Milk had curdled. Dogs had hidden under beds. Horses had kicked at their stable walls. One by one, they all agreed. The baby had brought a curse to Thornhaven. "We should take it outside the walls," said Elder Greta. Her voice was firm and cold. "Leave it in the forest. Whatever it is, it doesn't belong here." "No," Mara said. She stepped forward closer to the crying infant. "This is wrong. It is just a baby." "Babies cry. That's what they do." "Does your baby make stones crack?" asked Thomas the baker. "Does your baby make the northern lights dance like that?" Everyone looked up. Above the village, the sky had come alive with color. Green and blue and purple lights swirled and twisted, brighter than anyone had ever seen. The lights moved too fast, too angry. They looked like flames trying to burn down the sky itself, "See?" Greta said to Mara. "The heavens themselves reject this creature. We must remove it before worse happens." "What worse could happen?" Mara asked. Her voice shook, but she stood her ground. "You want to kill a baby because you are afraid? What does that make us?" "Smart," said Greta. "It makes us smart. We survive because we know when to act. We survive because we help each other," Mara argued. "Because we show mercy." "Mercy will get us all killed," Greta shot back. The baby's crying changed. It grew deeper, louder, with a strange echo that seemed to come from inside the listeners' own heads. Several villagers clapped their hands over their ears. One woman fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Enough!" Greta shouted. "We vote who says the child must go." Nearly every hand went up. Mara looked around at her neighbors, these people she had known her whole life. She saw fear in their eyes, yes, but she also saw something else. She saw how easy it was for them to choose cruelty when they were scared. "You are all cowards," she said quietly. "And you are a fool," Greta replied. "Your soft heart will doom us all. Guards, take the child beyond the walls. Leave it where the forest meets the mountain. Let nature decide its fate." 2 young men stepped forward. They looked uncomfortable, but they obeyed. One of them picked up the baby, holding it at arm's length like it might bite him. The baby's cries grew even louder. The young man's hands started to shake. "Wait," Mara called out. "Please, I will take it. I will raise it myself, away from the village if you want. Just don't leave it to die." "You will do no such thing," Greta said. "You are one of us, Mara. You will obey or you will leave with the creature." Mara looked at the baby, then at the elder, then at all the faces around her. She thought about her warm house. She thought about her small farm. She thought about everything she would lose if she chose to leave. And she thought about the weight of her empty arms. Before she could speak, Greta made the decision for her. "Take her inside, Thomas. Keep her there until this is done. She is not thinking clearly since she lost her child." Thomas the baker took Mara's arm gently. "Come on, lass. There's nothing you can do." Mara tried to pull away, but Thomas was strong. He led her back toward his house while the two guards carried the screaming baby toward the village gates. The other villagers followed at a distance, wanting to make sure the deed was done. Mara ended up at the baker's house, sitting by the window. Margaret brought her hot tea, but she did not drink it. She just stared out at the darkness, listening to the baby's cries grow fainter as it was carried away. "They're wrong," Mara whispered. "This is murder." "The elder knows best," Margaret said, but her voice did not sound certain. Outside, the northern lights grew wilder. They spun in great circles now, faster and faster. The wolves howled louder and closer than before. In the distance, toward the mountains, the villagers who were still outside saw something that made them freeze in fear. The sky was beginning to glow red, like a sunrise at midnight. But the sun would not rise for 6 more hours, and this light came from the north, from the high peaks where no human dared to go. Something was coming. Mara pressed her face against the cold window glass. She could still hear the baby crying in the distance beyond the village walls. The sound seemed to call to something, to someone, and whatever was answering that call was coming fast. The night was about to change forever. But for now, the villagers sat in their homes, convinced they had done the right thing. They told themselves they were protecting their families. They told themselves they had no choice. They told themselves many lies to help them sleep that night. But Mara did not sleep. She watched the red glow grow brighter in the northern sky. She listened to the wolves sing their strange songs. And she waited, knowing in her heart that their cruelty would not go unanswered. The baby's cries had been a summons, and now something ancient and terrible was responding. Dawn came slowly to Thornhaven, but it did not bring light. The sky stayed dark, covered with clouds that were too thick and too low. They pressed down on the village like a heavy blanket, making it hard to breathe. The villagers gathered in the square as the temple bells rang. No one had slept well. They had all heard the strange sounds in the night. The wolves howling, the wind that sounded like voices, and always the baby crying in the distance. "It is still alive?" asked Farmer Jens. He looked tired and scared. "Something keeps it alive," said Elder Greta. Her voice was sharp with anger. "We will go out this morning and finish what we started. We should have been more certain last night." Mara pushed through the crowd. She had escaped from the baker's house before dawn. "You cannot do this," she said. "Have you all lost your minds?" "It is a baby." "It is a curse," Greta replied. "And it will not end until the curse is ended." Several men nodded. They picked up axes and heavy sticks. They would go out to the forest together, they decided. For safety. They told themselves they were brave. They told themselves they were doing what needed to be done. But before they could take a single step toward the village gates, the world changed. The air grew thick. It felt like being underwater. Every movement took more effort. People gasped, trying to breathe. The clouds above them began to spin in a great circle, faster and faster, like water going down a drain. "Look," someone screamed, pointing up. Through the spinning clouds, they saw shapes, huge shapes dark against the already dark sky. Wings, enormous wings that blocked out what little light remained, and then the shadows fell. The first dragon passed over the village so low that the wind from its wings tore thatch from the roofs. It was massive, bigger than any building in Thornhaven. Its scales were dark as night, but threaded through with lines that glowed like melted gold. When it roared, every window in the village shattered at once. People screamed. They ran for their homes, for the temple, for anywhere that might offer shelter. But there was no shelter from something so large. The second dragon followed the first, and then a third. They circled the village once, twice, 3 times. The beating of their wings sounded like thunder that would never stop. Then the largest dragon landed in the village square. The ground shook so hard that Elder Greta fell to her knees. Buildings swayed. The old temple bell fell from its tower and crashed to the stones below. But no one noticed. Everyone was staring at the dragon. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its head was as large as a horse cart. Its eyes were gold, bright as the sun, and ancient beyond measure. When it looked at the cowering villagers, they felt like insects. Small, weak, unimportant. The dragon opened its mouth and spoke. The voice did not come just from the air. It came from inside their bones, from the ground beneath their feet, from the stones of every building around them. It was a voice that could not be ignored or forgotten. "Where is the child?" The words were simple, but they carried so much power that several people fainted. Others fell to their hands and knees, unable to stand in the presence of such a being. No one answered. No one could answer. Fear had stolen their voices. The dragon's eyes narrowed. It lowered its huge head to look more closely at the terrified humans. Its breath smelled like storms in ancient forests and things that had no names. "I will ask once more, where is the child?" Mara stood up. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to stand. "Beyond the walls," she said. Her voice sounded so small compared to the dragon's. "They left it in the forest last night." The dragon's golden eyes fixed on her. For a moment, Mara thought she would die from the weight of that gaze. But the dragon just studied her, looking deep into her soul. You did not agree with this, it was not a question. The dragon knew. Somehow it could see the truth inside her. "No," Mara said. "I tried to stop them. They would not listen." The dragon lifted its head and roared again. This time, the sound carried words that echoed across the valley and into the mountains beyond. "Valtheris comes for what is his." Then the great dragon launched itself back into the sky with a single beat of its wings. The force knocked Mara and everyone else to the ground. The dragon flew north toward the forest, toward the mountains, toward the place where they had left the baby to die. The villagers slowly got to their feet. They looked at each other with white faces and shaking hands. Elder Greta's lips moved, but no sound came out. The men who had been so ready to march out with their axes now dropped them in the mud. "What have we done?" whispered Thomas the baker. No one answered because they all knew. They had just learned that the crying baby was not a curse. It was something far more important than that. It belonged to a dragon. Minutes passed like hours. The villagers waited in the ruined square, too afraid to move. Some prayed. Some cried. Some just stood there empty and shocked. Then the dragon returned. This time it landed more gently. In its massive claws, held with such care that it seemed impossible, was the baby. The tiny infant looked even smaller against the dragon's black scales. But it was not crying anymore. It was looking up at the dragon with wide, curious eyes. The dragon set the baby down on the temple steps in the exact spot where it had been found the night before. Then it transformed. The huge body shrank. The wings folded and disappeared. The scales became dark robes. In the space where the dragon had been now stood a tall figure that was neither fully human nor fully dragon. It had a human shape, but its eyes stayed golden and its skin held a faint shimmer like scales. "I am Valtheris the Keeper," the dragon said in a voice that was quieter now, but still carried power. "I have searched for 3 days and 3 nights. Raiders took this child from the place between worlds. Those raiders died in the mountains during the blizzard. I followed the child's cry to your village." The dragon man picked up the baby with surprising gentleness. The infant made a small, happy sound and reached for the dragon's face with tiny hands. "This child is human," Valtheris continued, "but also more than human. Once every 1,000 years, when the walls between worlds grow thin, such a one is born. A bridge child, born to stand between your kind and mine." Elder Greta found her voice at last. "We did not know," she said. "We thought. We were afraid." "Yes," said Valtheris, his golden eyes fixed on her. "You were afraid. So you chose cruelty. You chose to kill an innocent because you did not understand. What will you do to us?" asked Farmer Jens. His voice shook. Valtheris looked around at all the frightened faces. "I could burn your village to ash," he said calmly. "I could scatter these stones so completely that no one would ever know humans lived here. That would be justice in the old way." The villagers held their breath. "But I am not a creature of the old ways," Valtheris continued. "I have watched humans for 10,000 years. I know what you are capable of, both the worst and the best. You have shown me your worst. Now you will have a chance to show your best. He walked to the center of the square, still holding the baby. The other dragons had landed around the village now, forming a circle of scaled bodies and golden eyes. There was no escape. No way to run. I offer you a choice, Valtheris said. Traditional justice or a different path. What is the different path? Mara asked. Valtheris looked at her with something that might have been respect. For 10 years this village will become a sanctuary. Any creature, any person, any being that seeks shelter here will find it. You will judge no one by their appearance. You will turn no one away. You will learn what mercy truly means. And, Greta asked, and one of you will come with me. For 1 year you will live among dragons. You will learn our ways. You will see what civilization truly looks like. Then you will return and teach your people. Who? Several people asked at once. You will choose, Valtheris said, but choose wisely. Send me someone who can learn, someone who wants to be better, someone with courage. Mara stepped forward before anyone else could speak. I will go. Greta turned to her in shock. Girl, you do not know what you are offering. I know exactly what I am offering, Mara said. She looked at Valtheris. Will the child be safe with you? Safer than here, the dragon replied. There was an edge to his voice. Then I will come, Mara said firmly. I will learn, and I will return to teach what I have learned. Valtheris studied her for a long moment. The baby in his arms reached toward Mara and made a soft cooing sound. The child knows you, Valtheris said. You are the only one who tried to help. Very well. Mara of Thornhaven, you will come with us when the moon is full. That gives you 3 days to prepare. What about the rest of us? Asked Thomas the baker. You will begin your sanctuary work immediately, Valtheris said. And know this, the child will return when grown. How you treat outcasts and strangers from this day forward will determine whether that return brings blessing or destruction. Choose wisely, humans. You will not get another chance. With those words, Valtheris began to change again. His body grew. His robes became scales. His arms became wings. In moments, the dragon stood in the square once more, the baby safe in his claws. The other dragons took to the sky. Valtheris was the last to leave. He looked down at the village one final time, his golden eyes promising that he would be watching. Then he launched himself into the air and was gone. The villagers stood in silence for a long time after the dragons left. No one spoke. 3 days passed like 3 years. The village changed in ways that no one expected. At first, people were just scared. They repaired their broken windows with shaking hands. They picked up the fallen temple bell and hung it again, though it rang with a crack now that would never fully heal. They swept up debris and tried to pretend that everything could go back to normal, but nothing would ever be normal again. On the second day, a family of refugees arrived from the south. They were thin and tired, running from a war in their homeland. Normally, Elder Greta would have sent them away. The village barely had enough food for itself, but when she opened her mouth to refuse them, she remembered golden eyes watching from the sky. Come in, she said instead, the words tasting strange on her tongue. We will find you shelter. The refugees looked shocked, then grateful. Then they began to cry with relief. Mara watched from her window. She was packing her few belongings for the journey ahead. 1 bag. That was all Valtheris had said she could bring. Everything else she owned would stay behind. On the 3rd day, more strangers came. An old man who had been cast out of his village for stealing bread. A young woman with a burned face that made children stare. A boy who could not speak. One by one, they appeared at Thornhaven's gates. And one by one, the villagers let them in. Word was spreading somehow. Thornhaven was now a place of sanctuary, a place where anyone could find shelter. The villagers were not happy about it. They grumbled and complained. They said their food stores would run out. They said their houses were too full. They said many things, but they did not turn anyone away, because they knew the dragons were watching. That night, under a full moon, Valtheris returned. He came alone this time, landing in the village square just as darkness fell. The villagers gathered again, though this time they came more quietly with more respect. They had learned their lesson about showing fear too openly. It is time, Valtheris said. He had kept his dragon form, huge and magnificent under the moonlight. Mara of Thornhaven, are you ready? Mara stepped forward from the crowd. She wore her best dress and carried her small bag. Her hands did not shake, though her heart beat fast inside her chest. "I am ready," she said. "Wait," said Elder Greta. She moved forward, leaning heavily on her walking stick. She looked older than before, worn down by 3 days of shame and fear. "Before you go, I must speak." Valtheris tilted his great head. "Then speak, Elder." Greta turned to face the crowd. Her voice was stronger than anyone expected. 3 days ago, we did something terrible. We let our fear make us into monsters. We were ready to kill a baby because we did not understand it. Some people in the crowd looked down at their feet. Others nodded slowly. "Mara was right," Greta continued. "She was the only one brave enough to stand against us. The only one who remembered what it means to be human, not powerful, not fearless, but kind, merciful, willing to help those who cannot help themselves." Greta turned to Mara. "I am sorry, child. You deserved better from us. We all deserved better from ourselves." Mara felt tears in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I accept your apology," she said. "Use this year well. Prove that humans can change. Prove that we can be better." "We will," Greta promised. "Or may the dragons burn us all." Valtheris made a sound that might have been approval. "Words are easy, human elder. Actions will matter more. I will be watching. My kind will be watching. Every stranger you help, every outcast you shelter, every mercy you show will be noted. And every cruelty, every rejection, every moment of hate will also be seen." He lowered his body so that Mara could climb onto his back. "Come, human. Your education begins now." Mara had never been on a horse, much less a dragon. She took a deep breath and climbed up, settling herself between the huge scales. They were warm under her hands like sun-heated stones. "Hold tight," Valtheris said. "This will be frightening at first." He was right. The moment the dragon launched into the sky, Mara's stomach dropped to her feet. The village fell away below them, becoming small as a toy. The wind screamed past her ears. The ground was so far away that she could barely breathe, but then something changed. Her fear began to fade, replaced by wonder. The world spread out below her like a map. She could see the forest, the mountains, rivers like silver threads in the moonlight. She could see things she had never imagined existed. "Beautiful, is it not?" Valtheris said. His voice carried clearly even over the wind. "This is how we see the world, how we have always seen it." They flew north for hours. Mara lost track of time. Sometimes they were so high that frost formed on her eyelashes. Sometimes they dropped low over valleys where villages slept, unaware of the dragon passing overhead. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to touch the eastern sky, Mara saw their destination. The mountain rose higher than any she had ever seen. Its peak disappeared into the clouds. But halfway up, carved into the stone itself, was a city. Not a human city. A dragon city. Huge caves opened onto the mountainside, each one large enough to fit a castle inside. Walkways and bridges connected them, carved from the living rock. And everywhere, dragons. Some flew through the air. Some rested on ledges. Some walked on 2 legs in their half-human forms. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Valtheris landed on a wide platform near the top of the city. Other dragons turned to look. Their eyes glowed in different colors. Gold, silver, bronze, blue, green. Each one radiated power that made Mara's skin tingle. "Welcome to the Eyrie," Valtheris said. "This is the oldest dragon city in the world. Here you will learn what it means to be civilized." A smaller dragon approached. Its scales were deep blue like the ocean. When it spoke, its voice was lighter than Valtheris, almost musical. "This is the human?" the blue dragon asked. "This is Mara," Valtheris confirmed. "She will live among us for 1 year." "She looks fragile," the blue dragon observed. "Will she survive?" "That remains to be seen," Valtheris replied. "But she has courage. That is a start." Over the next weeks, Mara learned more than she thought possible. She learned that dragons did not sleep like humans. They rested, but they never truly stopped thinking. She learned that they could live for thousands of years, and that some of the dragons in the Eyrie remembered when humans first learned to make fire. She learned that dragons had their own language, one that no human throat could speak properly. But she tried anyway, and the dragons seemed amused by her attempts. Most importantly, she learned about Kale. That was the name the dragons had given the baby. In the dragon language, it meant bridge or connection. Kale was being raised in a special chamber deep in the mountain. It was filled with treasures from 100 civilizations, books and languages Mara had never seen, art from cultures that no longer existed, weapons and tools and toys from across the world and throughout time. We teach our children through immersion, Valtheris explained. Kyle will learn everything. Every language. Every culture. Every way of thinking. When Kale is grown, this child will be able to understand anyone, speak to anyone, connect with anyone. What happens then? Mara asked. Then Kale chooses, Valtheris said. Dragon or human? We will not force the decision. Bridge children must make their own path. Mara visited Kale every day. The baby was growing quickly and there was something clearly different about the child. Kale's eyes changed color sometimes, shifting from brown to green to gold. When Kale cried, which was rarely, the sound carried harmonics that made Mara think of singing. But what struck Mara most was how the dragons treated the baby. With such gentleness, such patience, such love, these huge, powerful creatures that could destroy armies became soft and careful around one small human infant. Why do you care so much? Mara asked Valtheris one day. They were sitting on a cliff edge watching the sun set over the mountains. You could rule the world if you wanted. Why do you guard a human baby? Valtheris was quiet for a long moment. We have great power, he finally said. But power without purpose is just destruction. Bridge children are our purpose. They remind us why we exist. To protect, to teach, to connect the ancient with the new. But humans threw Kale away, Mara said bitterly. We almost killed the baby. Why do you still believe in us? Because of you, Valtheris said simply. One human in a village full of fear. One voice saying no when everyone else said yes. That is why we still have hope. Humans have the capacity for great evil, yes, but also for great good. You can change. You can learn. You can grow. We dragons are old and wise, but we do not change easily. You humans, you are young and foolish, but you can become anything. Mara thought about that, about her village, about all the people who had been ready to commit murder, but also about Elder Greta's apology, about the refugees being welcomed, about the possibility of change. I want to help, she said. Not just my village. I want to help humans and dragons understand each other. Good, Valtheris said. That is what bridge keepers do. And that is what you are becoming, Mara. Not a bridge child like Kale, but a bridge keeper. A human who can teach other humans what we dragons know. As the months passed, Mara's education continued. She sat in on dragon councils where they debated the future of the world. She heard some dragons argue that humans were too dangerous, too violent, too short-lived to ever be trusted. And she stood up and argued back. She talked about human art, about music that could make people cry with joy, about stories that were passed down through generations, about how humans helped each other even when it cost them, about love and sacrifice and hope. Some dragons listened, some did not. But slowly, Mara saw some minds begin to change. One day, nearly a year after she had arrived, Valtheris came to her with news. It is time for you to return, he said. Your village awaits, and Kale has asked to go with you. Mara's heart skipped. Kyle wants to live with humans? For a time, Valtheris said. To learn, to grow among your kind. We have taught Kale what we can. Now it is your turn. Mara felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders, but she did not shy away from it. I am ready, she said, and she meant it. The months in the Eyrie passed in a way that felt both slow and fast at the same time. Each day brought new wonders that Mara had never imagined. Each night brought lessons that changed how she saw the world. She woke each morning in a chamber carved from crystal that caught the sunrise and filled the room with rainbow light. A young dragon named Thesia brought her breakfast. Thesia had bronze scales and curious eyes, and she liked to ask questions about human life. Why do humans eat 3 times a day? Thesia asked one morning. We dragons eat once a week, sometimes less. Our bodies are smaller, Mara explained. We burn through energy faster. We need food more often to survive. That seems difficult, Thesia said thoughtfully. Always having to hunt, to gather, to cook. You spend so much time just staying alive. Yes, Mara agreed. But it also means we appreciate food more. Every meal is important to us. We gather together to eat. We make it special. We turn survival into celebration. Thesia tilted her head. I never thought of it that way. Perhaps there is wisdom in your weakness. This was how many of Mara's days went. Small conversations that revealed big differences. Slowly, she began to understand how dragons saw the world, and how different it was from human understanding. Dragons thought in centuries, not years. They made plans that would not come to fruition for generations. They saw patterns in history that humans were too short-lived to notice. But they also missed things. Small things. The way a single kind word could change someone's entire day. The way humans could adapt to new situations and moments where dragons took years to accept change. "You are teaching us as much as we teach you," Valtheris told her one day. They were walking through the Hall of Memory, a vast cavern where dragons kept records of everything they had witnessed. "Many of my kind forget what it is like to be young, to be small, to live quickly. You remind us." Mara looked up at the walls covered in writing. Not all of it was words. Some was music, somehow frozen in stone. Some was moving images that played out in the crystal formations. Some was just feeling emotion made solid. "This is incredible," she whispered. "You have recorded everything." "Not everything," Valtheris said. "We forget things too. We lose details. The difference is that we live long enough to record what we remember before it fades completely. Humans must pass knowledge down through stories, through teaching, through books. You have to trust that the next generation will remember." "Do you trust us?" Mara asked. "Humans, I mean. Do you trust that we will remember what matters?" Valtheris was quiet for a long time. "I trust that you will try," he finally said. And that is all anyone can ask. The chamber where Kale lived became Mara's favorite place in the Eyrie. It was warm and bright, filled with soft fabrics and interesting objects. The baby was growing fast. Already Kale could sit up and reach for things. The child's eyes were bright and curious, tracking everything that moved, but what amazed Mara most was how Kale responded to language. When dragons spoke in their tongue, Kale made sounds back, trying to copy the impossible syllables. When Mara spoke in human language, Kyle turned toward her with recognition, as if understanding. "Bridge children are born with the gift of tongues," explained an ancient dragon named Mordrin. He was silver with age, his scales pale as moonlight. "They can learn any language, speak to any creature. It is in their blood, in their bones, in the very essence of what they are." "How is that possible?" Mara asked. Mordrin chuckled, a sound like rocks rolling down a mountain. "How is anything possible? Magic, some call it. Evolution, say others. The gods will, claim the religious. Does the name matter? The gift exists. We accept it and teach the child to use it well." Mara spent hours with Kale each day. She sang human songs, told human stories, spoke of her village, of farms and festivals, of seasons and harvests, and Kale listened with those strange, color-changing eyes. "You are good with the little one," said Thessia, watching from the doorway one day. "You would have been a good mother." Mara felt the familiar ache in her chest. "I was a mother for 2 years. Then fever took my baby." "I am sorry," Thessia said softly. "We dragons do not have children often. But when we do, we love them fiercely. I think humans and dragons are not so different in that way." "No," Mara agreed. "I suppose we are not." As the months passed, Mara attended the dragon councils. At first, she simply listened. The debates were fascinating and frightening at the same time. "Humans are spreading too fast," argued a dragon named Korith. His scales were deep red like dried blood. "They cut down forests, drain swamps, kill anything that threatens their farms. In another 1,000 years, there will be no wild places left." "They are young," countered a green dragon named Silith. "They do not understand the balance yet. We must teach them, not condemn them." "We have been teaching them for 10,000 years, Korith snapped. "How much time do they need? How much damage must they do before we act?" "What would you have us do?" asked Valtheris. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "Destroy them? Force them to live as we command? That is not guardianship. That is tyranny." "Perhaps tyranny is necessary," Korith said, "for the good of the world." "Who decides what is good?" Mara spoke up before she could stop herself. Every dragon turned to look at her. She felt like a mouse among cats, but she kept talking. "You think you know what is best because you are old and powerful. But you do not live as we live. You do not struggle as we struggle." "Careful, human," Korith growled. "You are a guest here." "I am," Mara agreed. "But I'm also a representative of my people, and I will not stay silent while you discuss erasing us." Valtheris made a gesture that silenced Korith. "Let her speak. That is why she is here." Mara took a deep breath. "You say humans damage the world. You are right, we do. But we also create beauty. We make art that lasts generations. We write poems that make people weep. We build communities where everyone takes care of each other. Yes, we also make war. We are cruel to each other sometimes. We make terrible mistakes, but we learn, we grow, we change. Do you? Koreth challenged. I have watched humans for 3,000 years. I see the same patterns repeat over and over. War, peace, war, peace. Build, destroy, build, destroy. You learn nothing. We learn slowly, Mara admitted. We have to. Our lives are short. Each generation has to be taught again, but the teaching sticks a little more each time. We used to sacrifice children to angry gods. We do not anymore. We used to keep slaves. Most of us do not anymore. We used to think the earth was flat. We know better now. Change comes slowly, but it comes. And if we do not have time to wait for your slow change, Koreth asked. If your damage becomes too great, then help us change faster, Mara said. Teach us better. Send more bridge children. Build more connections between your kind and mine. But do not give up on us, because if you do, you are no better than the humans who left baby Kale to die. You will have let fear make you cruel. The chamber fell silent. Mara realized she was shaking. She had just compared dragons to her own village's worst moment. She might have just signed her own death warrant, but Valtheris was nodding slowly. She is not wrong, he said. We judge humans for their fear and cruelty, but if we respond with fear and cruelty ourselves, we prove that power does not bring wisdom. We prove that age does not bring compassion. So we do nothing? Koreth demanded. We watch while they destroy everything? No, said Silith, the green dragon. We do what we have always done. We watch, we teach, we intervene when we must, but we do not abandon hope. If we have learned anything in our long lives, it should be that nothing stays the same forever. Not humans, not even us. The debate continued for hours, but Mara had said her piece. She left the council chamber with her head spinning and her heart pounding. Thessia found her later, sitting on a cliff edge and looking out at the stars. That was brave, the bronze dragon said, and foolish, but mostly brave. I probably should have stayed quiet, Mara said. No, Thessia replied. You should not have. We need to hear these things. We get so caught up in our long plans and ancient grudges that we forget what it is like to live quickly, to feel urgently, to care desperately. You reminded us? Did I change any minds? Maybe, maybe not. But you planted seeds. That is all anyone can do. As the year drew toward its close, Mara felt herself changing. She had arrived as a simple villager, someone who had never been more than a day's walk from her home. Now she had seen wonders. She had learned secrets. She had argued with beings that could level mountains, but more than that, she had learned to see herself differently. Not as weak or small or unimportant, but as part of something larger. Part of the great pattern that connected all living things. One night she had a dream. Or perhaps it was a vision. She saw her village from above, the way a dragon sees. She saw it grow and change over the years. She saw strangers arriving and being welcomed. She saw the children of refugees playing with the children of villagers. She saw old Greta teaching young people about mercy and second chances. And she saw Kale, grown and strong, standing at the center of it all. A bridge between worlds, a living reminder that connection is stronger than division. When she woke, Valtheris was standing at the entrance to her chamber. It is time, he said. You have learned what we can teach you. Now you must take that knowledge home and share it. And Kale has chosen to come with you. Is the child ready? Mara asked. No, Valtheris said honestly. But readiness is not something you wait for. It is something you grow into. Kale will learn from humans now, just as you learned from us. What if I fail? Mara whispered. Then you fail, Valtheris replied. But you will fail trying to do something good. That is all any of us can do, Mara. Try and hope. And believe that others will try and hope and believe alongside us. Mara packed her small bag, though it now also contained gifts from the dragons, a crystal that glowed with soft light, a book of dragon wisdom, translated into human language, a small knife made from dragon scale, harder than any metal, but the greatest gift was the knowledge in her head and the courage in her heart. As the sun rose on her last day in the Eyrie, Mara held Kale in her arms. The child was 10 months old now, big enough to sit up and babble. Those strange eyes looked at Mara with trust and affection. Let us go home, Mara said, and show them what we have learned. The flight back to Thornhaven took most of a day. Mara sat on Valtheris's back with young Kale strapped safely against her chest. The child looked around with wide eyes, making happy sounds at the clouds and the birds and the world spread out below. You are nervous, Valtheris observed. His voice rumbled through his body, easy for Mara to hear even over the wind. Yes, she admitted. I have been gone for a year. What if everything has changed? What if nothing has changed? Both are possible, the dragon said, and both can be worked with. You will see. As they flew closer, Mara began to notice differences in the landscape. The village was bigger. New buildings stood where there had been empty fields. The roads looked wider and better maintained. Even from high above, she could see more people moving through the streets than Thornhaven had ever held before. It has grown, she said in wonder. Word spreads, Valtheris replied. A sanctuary calls to those who need sanctuary. Let us see if the call was honest. He landed in the same village square where he had landed a year before, but this time there was no panic. People gathered, yes, but they came curious rather than terrified. Children pointed and whispered. Adults bowed their heads respectfully. No one ran screaming. Elder Greta was there, leaning on her walking stick. She looked older, more tired, but there was something different in her eyes, something softer than the hard certainty that had been there before. Welcome home, Mara, the old woman said. Welcome home, young Kyle. Mara slid down from the dragon's back, holding Kyle carefully. Her legs wobbled a bit after the long flight, but she managed to stay standing. She looked around at all the faces, both familiar and new. The village has changed, she said. Everything has changed, Greta replied. Come, let me show you. They walked through the village while Valtheris followed at a respectful distance, his huge form drawing stares but not fear. Mara saw things that made her heart lift. The old temple had been rebuilt and expanded. One wing now served as a shelter for travelers. Another had become a school. We teach reading now, Greta explained, not just to village children, but to anyone who wants to learn. We have people from 6 different kingdoms here. They all teach each other their languages, their customs, their skills. Who paid for all this? Mara asked. The refugees, Greta said. It turns out that when you help people, they want to help back. We gave them shelter. They gave us labor, knowledge, trade connections. The village is 3 times wealthier than it was a year ago. They passed the old baker's shop. Thomas waved from the window, his hands white with flour. Next to his shop was a new building Mara did not recognize. What is that? A weaver's workshop, Greta said. Run by a family from the south. They are teaching village girls a trade. In return, we give them a place to live and food to eat. Everyone benefits. Mara felt tears in her eyes. You really did it? You created a sanctuary. We had no choice at first, Greta admitted. We were afraid of the dragon's punishment. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about fear. It started being about pride, about wanting to be the kind of people who help instead of hurt. They reached Greta's house. Inside, the elder had prepared a simple meal. Bread, cheese, dried fruit, and hot tea. Kale sat on Mara's lap, reaching for everything with curious hands. Tell me about the child, Greta said. What is Kale like? Special, Mara said. She bounced Kale gently on her knee. Already Kale can understand 3 languages. Already the child shows gifts that no normal human has. But also Kale is just a baby. Hungry and curious and sometimes cranky. Both extraordinary and ordinary at the same time. Like all children, then, Greta said with a small smile. Yes, Mara agreed. Like all children. Over the next weeks, Mara settled back into village life. But it was different now. She was different. She had seen wonders and learned secrets. She had argued with dragons and won their respect. She could not go back to being the simple woman she had been, so she became something new. She started teaching. Not just children, but adults too. She taught them about dragons, about the Eyrie, about the wider world beyond their small valley. She taught them the dragon perspective on time and patience and planning. But more than that, she taught them about connection, about how everything was linked together. How helping a stranger today might save your life tomorrow. How mercy given was often mercy returned. How fear made people small, but courage made them grow. Kyle became the village's shared child. Everyone helped raise the little one. The baker gave Kale treats. The weaver made soft clothes. The warriors taught gentle games. The scholars read stories, and Kale grew, fast. Too fast, really. By the age of 2, the child could speak 4 languages fluently. By 3, Kale could read and write. By 5, Kale was solving problems that adults struggled with, but the child never acted superior. Never made others feel small. Kale had learned well from both dragons and humans. Power should be used to lift up, not push down. The years passed. Mara grew from a young woman into a mature adult. She never married, though she had offers. She said her purpose was larger than one family. She was a bridge keeper now, and bridges belonged to everyone. Elder Greta died peacefully in her sleep when Kale was 7. Before she passed, she called Mara to her bedside. "I was wrong," the old woman whispered, "about so many things. About the child. About mercy. About what strength really means. You learned," Mara said gently. "That is what matters. Will I be forgiven?" Greta asked. "For what I almost did?" "You already are," Mara assured her. "Kale forgave you years ago. The child understands that people make mistakes. It is what you do after the mistake that defines you." Greta smiled and closed her eyes for the last time. They buried her in the village cemetery, under a stone that read, "She learned to see clearly." It was the highest praise anyone could think to give. When Kale turned 10, Valtheris returned. The dragon landed in the square, now worn smooth by 10 years of feet from 100 different places. The village gathered, but this time there was joy in the gathering. Children ran up to touch the dragon's scales, laughing. Adults called out greetings. "The bridge child has chosen to remain human," Valtheris announced. This was always Kale's right, and now Kale has a proposal. Kale stepped forward. The child was tall for 10 years old, with those strange color-changing eyes and a voice that carried unusual harmonics. But the smile was pure human warmth. "I want to build a school," Kale said. "A special school, where humans and dragons can learn together, where we teach not just facts but understanding, where we create more bridges between our peoples." "Here?" someone asked. "In Thornhaven?" "Here," Kale confirmed. "This village showed that humans can change, can grow, can become better. Let us show the world what is possible when two very different peoples work together." Valtheris nodded his massive head. "The dragon councils have agreed. We will send teachers, young dragons who want to understand humans, and humans from everywhere are welcome to come and learn from us." "It will be difficult," Mara warned. "Not everyone is ready to accept dragons. Not all dragons are ready to accept humans." "True," Kale said. "But difficulty is not a reason to avoid doing something good. You taught me that, Mara. You and the dragons both." Over the next year they built the school. It was unlike anything the world had seen. Classrooms large enough for dragons, libraries with books in a dozen languages, workshops where humans and dragons worked side by side on projects that combined magic and craft. Students came from everywhere. Human children who wanted to learn dragon wisdom, young dragons curious about human creativity, scholars seeking knowledge, warriors seeking peace, merchants seeking trade routes. All were welcome. Kale taught languages and diplomacy. Mara taught history and philosophy. Valtheris taught ancient magic and patience. Other dragons taught flight physics and metallurgy. Human teachers taught art and agriculture and engineering. But the most important lessons were not in any classroom. They were in the dining halls where dragons and humans shared meals, in the gardens where they worked together, in the quiet conversations late at night where fear gave way to friendship. One day a family arrived at the village gates. They were thin and desperate, refugees from a war-torn land. The guards at the gate welcomed them immediately, offered them food and shelter, asked nothing in return. Mara watched from her window, as she had 10 years before when the first refugees came. But this time she was smiling, because the guard who welcomed them was the son of one of the men who had carried baby Kale out to die in the forest. That man had spent the rest of his life trying to make up for that night. He had raised his son to be better than he had been, and his son was. That night, Mara sat with Kyle under the stars. The young person was not a child anymore, not really. Already Kale was becoming something remarkable. A true bridge, someone who could walk in both worlds and make others want to follow. "Do you ever regret it?" Mara asked. "Choosing to be human? You could have stayed with the dragons, learned everything they know, lived for thousands of years." "I chose to be human because humans need bridges more," Kale said. "Dragons are wise and patient. They will find their way. But humans, you live so quickly. You feel so much. You make such terrible mistakes, but also such beautiful art. You need reminders that you are connected to something larger. That is what I can be. A reminder." "You are more than a reminder," Mara said. "You are proof. Proof that humans and dragons can work together. Proof that fear does not have to win. Proof that change is possible." We are both proof, Kale corrected gently. I am what I am because you stood up for me. Because you refused to let fear make you cruel. Because you believed humans could be better even when all evidence said otherwise. Mara felt tears on her cheeks. I just did what was right. Exactly, Kale said. And that is humanity's greatest strength. Not power, not magic, not long life. Just the simple choice to do what is right even when it is hard, even when you are afraid, even when everyone else says you are wrong. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars turn overhead. In the village below, lights glowed in windows. Dragon and human, learning and teaching and living together. It was not perfect. There were still arguments, still misunderstandings, still moments of fear and doubt, but there was also laughter. And music. And hope. What happens next? Mara asked. We keep building, Kyle said. We keep teaching. We keep showing the world that connection is stronger than division. It will take time. Maybe generations. Maybe centuries. But if we can change one village, we can change the world. You really believe that? I have to, Kale said. Because the alternative is giving up. And neither humans nor dragons are very good at that. Mara laughed. No, I suppose we are not. High above them, a dragon flew across the moon. Below them, the village slept peacefully. And in the space between earth and sky, between dragon and human, between fear and hope, a new future was being built. One choice at a time. One kindness at a time. One bridge at a time. And it was enough.